Morning, I'm Rory and welcome back to Sawyer Academy. In this video we are going to be covering faces and rotations of logs. In the past few videos I've kind of touched on faces and rotations, so I'm making this video just to kind of cover what I mean when we're talking about faces and rotations, and that'll kind of set the groundwork for these upcoming videos. So let's start with faces. A log can have any number of faces, however many we cut off of that. But for this video's purposes, we're going to be talking about smaller diameter logs, so let's call it under 24 inches. Logs greater than 24 inches, 30, 36 inch and up, are usually called oversized logs, and we have to handle those differently because of how wide the boards can get, and the equipment can't always handle it. So for this video's purposes, we're talking smaller diameter logs. We're going to be talking up to 4 faces. So how we turn that log after we cut our first face, second face, third face, we're going to be cutting 4 slabs off, however many edging boards, and we'll be left with a 2-sided, 3-sided, or 4-sided cant, but up to 4 faces we're going to be cutting off the log. So if we consider that we're only going to be taking up to 4 faces, there will be 3 different rotations that we can do to that particular log to end up with an end result. Now that's going to vary, again, depending on your setup in your sawmill, or if you have a portable sawmill. So like for example, if you have a bull edger, you might only cut the first and second parallel faces off and be left with a 2-sided cant. You're not going to touch face 3 or face 4. If your bull edger has a line bar, you will have to touch face 3. If you have a resaw, you're going to have to cut face 3 and probably face 4 as well. And if you don't have a bull edger or a resaw after you, you're going to have to do all the cuts yourself, so then you'll be doing face 1, 2, 3, and 4. So for this purposes, let's call it that we don't have a bull edger, we don't have a resaw. We're going to be doing all the cuts ourselves, just like we would on a portable mill, just like we would do with a 4-bunk carriage and a double cut head saw. The principles are kind of the same. So if we look at what are those 3 rotations. So rotation number 1 is going to be what I call a standard rotation, and this will cover, at least in my case, this will cover like 90% of all the logs that you have to cut. So to start with, all 3 rotations that we're going to be talking about are always going to start at the same place. You're always going to orientate your log, apply your taper, and then start cutting your first face. We'll always be starting in the same place, so we'll pretend that our saw is on our right side here. So after we finished face 1, we're going to take a slab, 0 to however many boards we're going to cut off face 1, and then we're going to rotate that 180 degrees. So that's going to be our first rotation, is taking that log, rotating 180 degrees, and pressing that flat face of face 1 against the head blocks of the carriage. So here we have our first face, we cut it, we rotate it 180 degrees, press our flat face up against the head blocks, and now we're on face 2 with, again, our saw still on this right hand side. Again, face 2, now we're going to cut our slab and however many boards we're off face 2 to get to our cant size. And after that, we are going to do a 90-degree rotation and lay our 2-sided cant down flat onto our rails. So now that we're on face 3, in this standard rotation, face 3 is going to be handled a lot like face 1 as far as taper compensation is going to be concerned and things like that. After face 3 is cut, again, slab, however many boards, and we're going to rotate that 180 degrees to get to our final face 4. Now we're on face 4, and here we'll cut however many boards down to nothing, and then either send the cant away or send all the boards away. So this is what I call a standard rotation. Cut your first face, 180 degree flip, second face, 90 degree flip, you're ended up with a 2-sided cant. Cut your third face, 180 degree flip, and your 4th face. And that's what I'm going to call a standard rotation. After a standard rotation, like I said, this covers about 90% of the situations that I deal with. After that, there is another rotation that you can use. I don't have a name for it. So with the second rotation, you're going to start in the same place, but after you cut your first face, instead of doing a 180 degree turn, you're going to do either, depending on your setup, a 90 degree turn down or a 270 degrees the other way, depending on what tools you have to turn the log. So now we have our second face that with our cut side laying down on our rails of the carriage or on the bed of your mill. In this rotation, face 2 is going to be treated a lot like face 3 of the standard rotation. With this, with our saw on our right side, we're not referencing a flat face on our back like we are over here. On this second face, we are referencing this flat face. With this second face, it's a lot more like 3 as far as taper and that kind of thing are concerned. Just like with your other faces, you'll cut your slab, however many boards, and then with this case, you're gonna either rotate forward 90 degrees or backwards 270 degrees again. So now we're on our third face of this second rotation, and this third face is gonna be similar to our second face off a standard rotation in that we'll be referencing the flat side against the bunks with our saw on the right side. After we cut this third face, again, slab, however many boards, rotate again, either a 90-degree front flip or a 270-degree back flip. And as you can tell with the second rotation on face 4, we'll end up with the exact same cant or exact same piece that we would have off of the first standard rotation off of rotation number 1. Now why I'm saying here either 90 degrees or 270 degrees, again, that's going to come back to what do you have as a tool to turn your log. Some mills are set up that they'll have cant flippers, which will front flip the logs. Other mills will have log turners, pneumatic log turners or onboard log turners like we saw in a previous video. With that, you're going to have to, it's a lot more difficult to do a 90-degree front flip. So you're going to have to probably do a 270-degree back flip. So if you have to do or can really only do a 270-degree back flip, why this rotation doesn't or isn't optimal is that it's going to take you longer to do a 270-degree flip compared to 180-degree flips and then 90 degrees. So you'll be spending less time manipulating and turning the log with a standard rotation than you will with this other rotation, unless the mill you're working in is set up in a way such that you have cant flippers that you can front flip the log, where most mills don't, at least that I've seen. Another application for the second rotation is what I use it for is, so if we're still considering under 24-inch logs, once you're above that 20-inch, to do this standard rotation, to get this one-sided cant flipped up flat against the head blocks, this log can be so heavy and the center of gravity is kind of forward on it that it always wants to kind of fall away from your head blocks. Or your log turners aren't strong enough to hold the log in position, or your dogs aren't strong enough to hold the log or the one-sided cant in this position. So it'll always kind of want to flop forward, which you obviously don't want while you're cutting it. So what I use a second rotation for are bigger, heavier logs that I always want to make sure I have my flat reference point. If I can't get that flat reference point like I would off of like smaller logs in this rotation, I'll do the 270-degree flip. I'll take the extra time compared to the 180 and lay it down flat so I know I have that flat face and that flat reference point. And then after my third face, I end up with the same thing anyways. So it takes a little more time, but you'll end up with a better result if you can't get this flat against the head blocks. So the last rotation we're going to be looking at is rotation number 3. Again, I don't have a name for it. This application I rarely use, and it's really only useful if you kind of guessed wrong on your first face which you were going to make your cant size. So let's say you had your log orientation wrong by 90 degrees. So in a standard rotation, your face 1 and face 2 are going to define your cant size. Well, let's say you cut your first face and you realize you didn't leave enough material left. You took 1 too many boards and you're not going to be able to get a cant size, or there's a major defect in the log on face 1 and 2 that you didn't see until you cut face 1. So what you're going to do then instead is you'll see that rotation 3 is going to start similar to rotation 2, but this doesn't necessarily have to be big logs. This can be small diameter logs that you just can't quite get the cant size you want out of the face you've already cut. So rather than taking your cant size or determining your cant size with face 1 and 2 like on a standard rotation, this will be your cant size. With this third rotation, you're going to kind of negate your face 1 and you're going to use your face 2 and the opposite parallel face of face 3, and that'll determine your cant size instead. Again, that's just kind of if you messed up or you misjudged your starting point and you want your starting point to be 90 degrees offset of where you had previously started, if that makes sense. So again, we're going to start similar to rotation 2 with either a 90-degree front flip or a 270-degree back flip. And then after that, we're going to do rather than a 90-degree front flip, we're going to be doing 180 degrees. So we cut our second face, we do a 180-degree rotation and press face 2 up against the head blocks. If you do it, you're it's an unnatural feeling, but again, it lets you change your starting point by 90 degrees. And then rather than using face 1 and face 2 to determine your cant, you're going to be using face 2 and face 3 to determine your cant the other way. And then to get to fourth face on this third rotation, is it going to be, again, either a 90-degree front flip or a 270-degree back flip. And you'll notice all 3 rotations always end up with the same fourth face. And that this could be a cant size, or a cant that could go to a line bar bull edger. It could go to the resaw, or you're going to cut it all the way through yourself. But that's all I have on faces and rotations of small diameter logs. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.